We'll send it over to First Alert meteorologist Jake Lambrights.
Well, thank you. Right now, most of us are dry, but we are seeing some rain start to move into the area. Overnight tonight, flooding's not a big concern. Severe weather, not a big concern either. Here's what we're watching right now across the state line. This will gradually start to move into central Louisiana. The severe threat's going to be extremely low, but I'm not going to quite call it zero just yet. Really, more strong storms are expected tomorrow. That's going to be the day to watch closely. And it's a First Alert weather day, not so much because of the severe threat, but more so because of how elevated the flooding threat is. So really, we're going to be watching tomorrow afternoon through Wednesday morning, mainly for that flash flooding threat. The impact's expected to be anywhere from moderate to high across the state. So most of Louisiana, from the Arkansas-Louisiana state line all the way south of I-10, is under a moderate risk for flash flooding, and that is a level 3 out of 4 on the local flood risk scale. Of course, that includes all of us here in central Louisiana, so it is going to be very important to stay weather aware. Make sure to turn around. Don't drown if you encounter any flooded roadways. Also, when it comes to the flood threat, there is a flood watch in effect, not just for all of central Louisiana, but for the entire state, and most of those watches will expire on Thursday evening. Let's walk through the timeline for the rest of this evening. Again, some of that rain across the state line right now does move across as we go through the next couple of hours, and we see rain off and on during the overnight hours. Really not a big deal, not seeing much of a severe threat, not seeing much of a flood threat with this. Just going to be some nice rain, maybe a rumble of thunder as we go through the next couple of hours. But then on Tuesday morning, we're starting things off about 10 to 11 a.m. Most of the rain stays to the north there along the I-20 corridor between the Shreveport-Monroe area, give or take. Some of that does move into areas like Wynne and LaSalle Parish. Then by the early afternoon hours, more rain encompasses northeast Louisiana, central Louisiana, and we've got this nasty looking line of showers and storms just off to the west over in East Texas. By the afternoon, most of that widespread rain and storm threat includes areas south of I-20 through central Louisiana and just north of Interstate 10. By the early evening hours, maybe dinner time or so, we're still dealing with a lot of that widespread moderate to heavy rain, at least a low-end severe threat by this point. After that, though, the severe threat should start to taper off. Even Wednesday morning, though, the southern half of central Louisiana, the whole I-10 corridor from Lake Charles to Lafayette to Baton Rouge, even down to New Orleans, dealing with that widespread heavy rainfall. So they're going to be dealing with that flood threat as well. And even into the early afternoon Wednesday, we're still dealing with the rain. That rain should start to wrap up, though, by the early evening hours. As far as how much rain we could pick up across the state, here's scenario 1. Lower rainfall totals along I-20, 2 to 6 inches of rain widespread for central Louisiana. Higher totals along I-10, up to 7 to 10 inches there in Lafayette. Scenario 2, fairly similar for us in central Louisiana, but higher rainfall totals along I-20, around 3 to 4 inches. Still looking at the same widespread totals for central Louisiana, with some of those hot spots in our area as well. Locally higher amounts, maybe 6 to 9 inches, and also along the I-10 corridor, also looking at some higher totals as well. Whenever it does come to our severe weather threat over the next couple of days, there's a marginal risk tomorrow for the whole state, a slight risk there for our western central Louisiana parishes, basically from Shreveport down to Lake Charles, hugging that state line. When it comes to the severe weather threats, tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, all on the table, and the highest threat for those is going to be along the state line, again, from basically Shreveport to Lake Charles, covering areas like Sabine, Vernon, and Beauregard Parish in central Louisiana. We're going to be watching that closely, and again, same applies there for damaging winds and hail. If you're watching here in central Louisiana, we'll be keeping you up to date on KALB, and if you're outside of central Louisiana, our Gray television stations will have you covered throughout the day with those flooding and severe weather updates. Here's your First Alert 7-day forecast. Tuesday, Wednesday, First Alert weather days, and we have scattered rain for Thursday and Friday. This weekend is going to be a lot nicer, dry, and a little bit cooler. This is a treat for us this time of the year. Saturday highs are forecasted to be in the mid-70s, so a little cooler than usual.
So not a dry spot in the state tomorrow or Wednesday for the most part.
Yes, it's going to be tough. Hopefully we don't deal with a lot of flooding issues here, fingers crossed, but things have been pretty consistent and persistent with those flooding signals. So unfortunately, I think we've got to be prepared for some potentially significant flash flooding in portions of our area.
And I will say, at least the weekends are pretty nice. Like this past weekend, weekend before, I hope we can keep that trend going, you know?
Hopefully so. And it does look like moving forward, too, we'll start to dry out. So I know we're going to be regretting that, oh, we hope we're drying out by the time we get to July, but for now, I'll take it.
Yes, sir. All right. Thanks, Jake. Well, with hurricane season